Welcome to Boob Talk with your host, Cynthia Rogers. It's season 3. Come and join the Boob Talk family as we discuss the issues breast cancer and other cancer survivors face. Come along on our journey. We are survivors. Our special guest is Vina Morris, breast cancer survivor and CEO, founder, and president of AfroPink. Vina, welcome to Boob Talk.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'm excited to be here today.
So glad to have you. It's time for Survivor Spotlight, shining the light on the courage, hope, and faith of a survivor's journey. So, Vina, we're just going to get this started. Can you tell us about your breast cancer journey? When were you first diagnosed with breast cancer?
I was diagnosed in May of 2019.
Oh, wow. That was only a couple of years ago then. So how did you find out you had breast cancer?
Well, it started with an abnormal mammogram. That was followed by a benign biopsy, and then I made the decision to get a lumpectomy in May, and that's when it came back positive for cancer. It was a big surprise.
Oh my goodness! So, what prompted you to get a biopsy?
Well, it was the results from my mammogram. So after having a second and third mammogram, we decided that a biopsy would be better for us to understand what was going on. And so we took the biopsy of the lump, and it came back benign. So my doctor and I had a conversation after that, and we decided that we just didn't want to just sit there, so I wouldn't have to worry about it. So she encouraged me to get a lumpectomy, and then that's how they found it.
Okay, so really, if your doctor had not encouraged you, do you think you would have thought about getting a lumpectomy?
Honestly, no, I didn't. So once it came back benign, I was actually relieved, and I thought that I can go on about my life. And it wasn't until she was like, I think you should let's just take it out. Let's just take it out, and therefore we never have to worry about it again. And because I really did not want to have surgery, and to be honest, I was preparing to go on vacation. And so, of course, I was prioritizing my vacation over everything else, and she encouraged me to get it done right away, so I squeezed it in, and thank God that I did. So,
yes, and thank God for your doctor. So,
yes.
So, do they know what stage that was? Was it like stage 0?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with stage 0 DCIS, which is ductal carcinoma in situ or situ, and it was also hormone positive. And based upon my diagnosis, I was probably the best case scenario for being diagnosed with breast cancer, or any type of breast cancer, or any type of cancer, I should say, because the hormone positive means that it's more receptive to modern day treatments in breast cancer treatments today.
Yes, I was HER2 positive as well. So when you heard the words and after that you did indeed have breast cancer, what was going through your mind?
I was completely shocked, Cynthia. It was not the news I was expecting to hear. As I mentioned earlier, the biopsy came back benign. So I thought this was just like a formality. Let's just take it out and move on with my life. Mm-hmm. And then I'll resume my normal annual breast exams. And that wasn't the case. So I heard nothing after she said breast cancer. I didn't even know that there was a stage 0. I knew nothing about breast cancer except that, you can get breast cancer. Well, people can get breast cancer, not necessarily me. So I was very surprised and shocked and, scared. If I think about my emotions at that time, I was completely terrified because all I can think about is breast cancer and I'm going to die. So it was a very scary experience.
Now, is there a history of breast cancer in your family?
Well, so so on my father's side, and I learned this throughout my journey, is that my grandmother, my father's mother, she actually had breast cancer. And this is one of the things that I believe that wasn't necessarily true. So she also had cirrhosis of the liver or cancer of the liver. And I thought that she had liver cancer first and then metastasized to her breast. So when I explained that to the doctors, they said, no, that's not how breast cancer works. So that was one of the first, myths that I believed about breast cancer. And then maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, I was reunited, I should say, not reunited, but I was united with an aunt that I didn't know existed, thanks to Ancestry.com. And she told me that my grandmother, her grandmother, my great-grandmother, actually died of breast cancer at age 34.
Oh,
so
my
back
goodness.
in the 1940s. So even though those 2 women in my family had breast cancer, I also did genetic testing prior to knowing the truth about my father's mother and then learning about my great-grandmother. And I do not carry the BRCA, the BCRA1 or 2 genes or
That's
any
good.
Genetic gene mutations for cancer. So technically, no, but yes, because there are 2 women in my direct lineage, I guess, that had breast cancer. But according to my genetic testing, I don't carry the genes. So
okay, that's good to hear that. So was it suggested that you take any treatments like chemo or radiation, or what actually then happened on your journey?
So my original treatment plan consisted of getting another lumpectomy. They had to clear the margins. So that was my second lumpectomy. It also was recommended that I take 15 rounds of radiation, also take the hormone therapy for, what is it called, Topamax.
Okay.
They take a hormone therapy for 5 years, and then do a diagnostic mammogram every 6 months for 2 years. So I finished all of that treatment, and December 2019 was time for my very first, I finished all of it except for the hormone therapy. And December 2019 was it was time for me to get my first diagnostic mammogram. And during that first diagnostic mammogram, they discovered more cancer in the areas that they had just previously cleared. So in January of 2020, I had my third lumpectomy, and it was confirmed that it was more stage 0 DCIS. And at this time, my only choices for a treatment plan was either to do the wait and see game or do another biopsy, which I was not going to do, considering the outcome of the first biopsy, or to get a mastectomy. And so I opted to do a mastectomy because I also was diagnosed with extremely dense breast tissue, and that makes it difficult for the doctors to see other lumps or any types of abnormalities in the breast. So I decided to get it removed, and then I made the decision to do a double mastectomy so that I can, continue to do the preventative care necessary as it relates to breast cancer. So I was actually diagnosed twice. I'm a 2-time survivor.
Well, thank God you are still here.
Thank you.
Also, then I wanted to ask you, so how was your mindset then when you had to make that painful decision, to just go ahead and not only do a mastectomy, but then do a double mastectomy?
At that point, I was pretty much over it. So what I mean by that is the first time around, Cynthia, I was a ball of nerves. I was devastated. I was wailing, crying, walking up and down the street in New York City. And this time around, I was more prepared. They had extra people on staff to comfort me. I had my mom there. I had my Kleenex ready to go. So when she came back, I was like, you know what? Do what you got to do, because I don't want to have breast cancer, and I want to do what I can to prevent this from never coming back again. And if that's my strongest and best choices, then let's do that. So I did it without any fear. I was like, you know what? Let's do it. And I didn't look back, and everybody was kind of looking at me and waiting for the waterworks to start. And I was like, nope, I want to live. I want to be healthy, and they're trying to kill me. I don't know if you heard this term, homicidal breast set. One of my former friends refers to it as homicidal breast. They're trying to kill me. So I'm I had to get rid of them. So it was either them or me at that point in time. And I decided to say, you know what, take them both. I don't want to have to do any more mammograms. I don't want to have to do any more lumpectomies, because it doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense at that point to do a fourth one. So I'm like, just do what you got to do. So I was pretty much over it. Like, hey, I want to live, and if this is going to give me the best chances of survival, then let's do it. And I did not look back. There were no tears from that point forward. I just said, you know what? This is what I have to do.
Right.
So I had to, from learning through the first journey and the first treatment plan, to be positive and to think about the future and also be present at the same time. I just made the decision right then and there. And my mother would she kept looking at me like, are you sure you're okay? And then she was like waiting like days after, weeks after, and I'm just like, I'm fine. Like, it is what it is. This is what I got to do. So I did it, and here we are.
So what was your secret? What did you draw from to get through that whole journey? Because I can't even imagine. It was, for me, it was worse enough to be told that I had breast cancer, but I can't imagine to think that, okay, you don't, then to find out you do, then for it to come back, and then you have to make that decision to get a mastectomy and then double. What motivated you or encouraged you to keep going?
I wanted to be healthy, and I did not want to think about breast cancer ever again. Not that you don't think about it, because as a survivor, you'll always think about it, but not having a concern of needing to constantly be tested and diagnosed. And I still have to go be evaluated on an annual basis, but it's not, every 6 months. I don't have to take the hormonal therapy anymore. The goal was to stay alive and to be the healthiest I could be, and that was the best decision for me at that point in time. And so for me, when I make a decision, I just go forward with it and accept everything that comes with it. But, you have to stay prayerful. You have to be surrounded by the people who love and support you. That was a key to it as well. I did whatever I could to, stay focused on the plan. Of course, you have to say goodbye to your girls, but, it is what it is. This was what the best decision was for me, and I made the decision, and I just decided to choose life and to live it to the fullest from that point forward. So.
Well, God bless you. So glad that you're here to tell us your journey. And now I know you are the CEO, founder, and president of AfroPink. So can you tell me, what is AfroPink and how did it get started?
Sure. So AfroPink is a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing awareness of breast cancer into communities of color. So we aim to do three things as an organization. One of them is to dispel myths. The second one is to encourage preventative health care. And the third is to provide resources to help with 1 and 2. And it came about because I mentioned earlier that I knew nothing about breast cancer. Like, how you go to the doctor every year to do your breast exams. I did monthly breast health exams, to be honest. But I didn't believe that I can get it because, one, my mother didn't have it. My grandmother didn't have it. I was a pretty healthy person for the most part. And I just didn't think it was something that would ever touch my life. But in spite of what I believed, though, because I did I found a lump in my 30s. And that lump led to being diagnosed with fibrocystic breast and also extremely dense tissue breast. And that was what led my journey on getting mammograms every year. And to be honest, had I not found that lump, I probably would not have been getting mammograms because I didn't think it would be necessary, because I didn't think that, I honestly believe that breast cancer would not be something and that would be a part of my story. And so I wanted to start an organization because during my, upon, first of all, learning so much about breast cancer, there's so many different types, there's so many different treatment plans, there's so much information out there that I was just like oblivious to. And seeing that, and I also discovered that Black women have the highest rate of dying from breast cancer than any other race on this earth. We have a 40% higher chance. And that was alarming to me. And I started to think about the reasons why that is. So is it because of the things that we believe? I know I was a victim of that. Like, if I didn't find that lump, I probably would still be walking around here and probably would have never had a mammogram unless my doctor encouraged me to do so.
Right.
But is it because of healthcare disparities? Absolutely. Is it because of access to healthcare? But most importantly, I wanted to start this organization to help really to target that number and bring that number down by ensuring that women know that you can find out by simply doing a monthly breast self-exam, and you can find a lump or you and understand and be diagnosed at an earlier stage, because really, truly, what the research says is that it's like white women will be more likely diagnosed with breast cancer, but black women will have a higher chance of dying from it because we are diagnosed at much later stages. So if we're doing the work, if we're doing the monthly breast self-exams, if we're doing the annual mammogram, we can possibly get diagnosed early and have a better survival rate because of the earlier stages, the earlier stage diagnosis. And me, myself, being, one of the best case scenarios in that I was diagnosed at stage 0. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, I didn't even know there was a stage 0 prior to being diagnosed, and showing people that I am a living, breathing example of the slogan, early detection saves lives, and you can be too, just by simply doing doing your part and ensuring that you understand your status as it relates to your breast cancer, but most importantly, your overall health care. So that is why I started AfroPink, and because I really wanted to do something to help, stop our women from dying from breast cancer than any other race on this earth. So, and also men, if you're a black man, you too can get breast cancer. And guess what? If you're a black male diagnosed with breast cancer, you also have a higher chance of dying from breast cancer than any other race on this earth. So I want to do something for everyone in the communities of color to make sure that we are doing our parts. So that's why I started AfroPink.
Yes, and I wanted to also ask you, why did you think it was even important to bring awareness to the African American community? But you basically have just laid out all of the important reasons why this should be brought to the community, because like you were stating, you had no idea really about breast cancer. I know my mother got diagnosed, so she's actually was a 2-time breast cancer survivor, but when she got diagnosed 20-something years ago, we didn't really know anything about it. Like you said, I didn't know there was a stage 0. I just thought breast cancer, it's just it, one kind. I didn't know different stages. I didn't know any of that, like you said. So I think, there's just also just a lack of knowledge about what breast cancer is, how it can spread. Also when you're mentioning just the high rates for black women, and then it makes you question, well, why is it? Is it in our diet? Is it something ancestral? What do you think it is?
Honestly, because I was diagnosed and did not have I don't have a genetic history of it, even though, like I mentioned earlier, I learned that two women, my father's mother and grandmother had it. I honestly, I did explore the whole route of, is it something that I ate? Is it some medication that I took? Was it birth control? I honestly do not know. And that's one of the things that I want to also do at some point with AfroPink, is to really provide some way that we can provide some resources in terms of doing research specifically on women such as myself that don't necessarily have the genetic markers, to understand what are the factors that contribute to potentially getting breast cancer. Because what I found is there are things that they say that could potentially lead to breast cancer, and that's like, out drinking alcohol. I'm like, well, okay, a lot of people drink alcohol, but they don't get breast cancer. You know what I mean?
Right,
so
right.
What is it? Birth control pills. They say something about, not having children, and then they say something about not breastfeeding. But I know women who have had children who have breastfed, and they still have breast cancer. So it's so much conflicting information out there, and it's so confusing that I honestly don't know. And to be honest, I don't think that, I don't think anyone knows really. And I think that we need to dedicate some time, energy, and effort and researching why is that. I'm sure that are probably some studies out there, but what I would like to do is try to get the studies in our community as well. I know I did donate my tissue to science as well, so they can study my breast cancer lumps and all of that other stuff. All of my breast tissue was donated to science, so like they could do some studies, and I'm hoping that would be helpful.
Yes, that's one of it. That's one of the areas that I think and feel that there definitely needs to be more research. I was part of a clinical trial, and I just wanted to give back in some kind of way because, like you said, you just don't know. I question myself. I also don't carry the BRCA gene, but my mother had it twice. So then I'm thinking, well, is it something environmental? Is it something, is it my diet? Then I did notice similarities with myself and my mother. We both were cheese addicts. Sugar possibly, but I was a winehead. My mother didn't. My mom never drank alcohol, but I was a winehead, so I, cut all that back tremendously. So it's like you just never know, but you want to know what causes this. Then I thought, is it hair processing, getting perms, the chemicals?
Yes.
Because African American women have a higher rate of getting fibroids. Does that have some correlation? Hormonal breast cancer. I was on birth control. I didn't have any children.
Yep.
So it's, so I really, really think that research needs to be done. And I think that more survivors such as yourself advocating for this is going to make a difference. So I wanted to ask you now, where did you get the name AfroPink? I just think that's such a cool name.
It's a funny story. I think it's a funny story. I was trying to think about what could represent the African American or the African diaspora and the color pink. And I was just literally just bouncing around names. I thought of the name Pink Flag, Black Pink, African Pink. I was all over the place, and then Afro Pink just kind of stuck. And I just did a search to make sure that no one else was using the name. And to my surprise, no one was using the name. Maybe somebody was using it on Instagram, but it's not a business entity at all. So I jumped right on it. And here we are. So, but I was really trying to find something that represented that this is for us. It's for breast cancer, the color pink. And pink just happens to be my favorite color. It has nothing to do with breast cancer, but pink is my favorite color. Anybody who knows me will tell you that is my favorite color. So it's like a win-win. But the name just came to me in that regard because I was trying to find something that represented the African American or the African diaspora because we're all over the world, as you know, and then breast cancer. So
that's beautiful.
That's all I was thinking about.
So what activities? Yes, what activities or programs is AfroPink involved with?
So we primarily do podcasts such as this. I do a lot of IG Lives. I have been on Clubhouse, even though I haven't been active on Clubhouse in a while, but that's all about to change. And that was primarily because, we were really concerned initially about doing in-person events. And finally, we had our first inaugural in-person event last Sunday, September 19th. We had a breast cancer awareness block party, which really was a huge success. We were able to have mammograms, give out free mammograms to women in need. We also had the New York City Department of Health out there, to also Brooklyn Breast Cancer Services to show women how to do breast self-exams properly. We had a slew of other health vendors as well. We had representation from the U.S. Congress there, so it was a huge success. And some other events that are coming up, I'm going to be at a retreat this weekend in Baltimore. I'm going to go out to Houston in a couple of weeks to participate in a panel. So I have a lot of speaking engagements coming up for October. But one of the things about AfroPink that you should know is that we are a 365-day-a-year organization, and we do not just focus on Pink Month, October, for breast cancer awareness. I mean, it is a month where it's highlighted, but we try to make sure that people understand that you can get diagnosed at any point in time, and we have to keep working towards that. So stay tuned. We'll have more events coming up soon. Unfortunately, I live in New York, and it's going to get cold really soon, so I don't know about the outside activities, but we're really trying to make sure that we have events that are, pandemic safe. And we want to make sure that people are as safe as possible when we're doing events. So
it sounds like you're doing some wonderful, great, needed things within the community. And, I wanted to just ask you, lastly, what have you learned throughout your whole breast cancer experience, and what advice would you give to those who've been recently diagnosed or maybe are farther along in their journey?
So the first part of the question, I have learned so much, and a lot of the things I've already hit on, such as I didn't know, like you said it best. You said you just thought there was just breast cancer. There are so many types of breast cancer, and there are so many different treatment plans. So I've learned that people can have the same diagnosis but have a totally different treatment plan, and people have to make the decision, or people make the decisions that are best for them, and people should be respectful of that and supportive of that regardless of if you're a survivor or not. Now, I say that because some people are shocked by how the steps that people take to save their lives, and I'm always in support of you doing what's best for you. So I wanted to make sure that I said something about that, because I've been learning that I've heard that, several women are feeling some level of shame because of the choices that they made as it relates to their, survival. Also, I want to make sure that, people understand when you're first diagnosed, please make sure you stay off the internet. The internet will have you thinking that you're going to die tomorrow. Please stay off the internet. I know it's very hard because I was guilty. I was all over the internet like, oh, my God, how did this happen to me? But to really encourage people to talk to professionals and get your support team together. I swear there's a guy that I have a friend that worked in the same building as me but didn't necessarily work at the same company that I worked for. And I never see him. I only see him in Brooklyn, but we never see each other. And we literally work 2 floors away from each other. He literally worked 2 floors down below me. And that particular day I saw him, the day that I was diagnosed the first time, when I told you I was wailing up and down the street. And the first thing he said to me was like, V, we're going to get through this. Get your support team together. And that stuck with me. That resonated with me because it's something that I think that everybody should do. Get your team together. Surround yourself with people who are going to be supportive of you, that's going to help you. And depending on your treatment plan, you are going to need help. And it is very important that you talk about it and you feel validated and heard. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to tell people how you feel, because it is a very scary experience. And one of the things that I have learned, another thing that I've learned is like just being able to talk to someone myself, and especially meeting newly diagnosed patients. The things that I hear that are constant is that, I'm happy to talk to someone who has been through this before. Thank you, and talking to people that have not been through it, they understand, but they don't understand what it's like to have been diagnosed with the big C. So it's one of those things that I encourage people to do is to look. There's lots of support out there. There are lots of people, women who are out here, available and willing to help and talk you through and give you tips of things you can do throughout your treatment plan. So I want to make sure that I say that as well. It's okay. This is the biggest thing. It's okay to be scared, right? It's okay to not want to. One thing that I keep hearing is toxic positivity. And people are like, just stay positive, and sometimes, that's not always the case. Mm-hmm. You're scared. Right. This is the first time you're going through this. And it's okay for you to have those feelings. But, and if somebody is trying to invalidate that or not making you feel hurt, my suggestion always is like, get that person off your team or put them at arm's length, because you need someone that's also going to hear you, someone that's also going to listen to you, and that's going to love you throughout this whole journey. So, I wanted to just, that's some other advice that I give to folks all the time.
Amen. So lastly, Ms. Vina, how can someone get involved with AfroPink or get in contact with you for more information about AfroPink or just to hear more about your story?
Well, you can follow us at AfroPink Inc., INC, on IG, Facebook, Twitter, Clubhouse, and LinkedIn. You can also email us at info@afropink.org. We also have a site, afropink.org as well. But if you want to get involved, we are always looking for volunteers. We are actually growing. I just finalized my board. I'm really excited to announce them next week. And we're looking for people to help out. And it doesn't necessarily mean money per se. We can use time. We can use people to help us with writing. We can use people to help us with design and development. Any and every minute of your time would be greatly appreciated. So feel free. We have a form on the site where you can join us as an AfroPink ambassador. You can join us. You can partner with us on events. So feel free to reach out to us in any of those ways that I mentioned, and I will be happy to have you to be a part of AfroPink.
Great. Thank you so much, Vina. I want to just thank you for joining us on Boob Talk, and hopefully we can come back soon. Hopefully we can collaborate and do some things together. I just want to thank you for sharing your journey, and thank you for the wonderful work that you are doing within the African American community.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, and thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
We will. We'll talk soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
You have been listening to Boob Talk, and I'm your host, Cynthia Rogers. Special thanks to our guest tonight, Vina Morris. She's a two-time breast cancer survivor and CEO, founder, and president of AfroPink, a nonprofit breast cancer awareness organization. It tries to dispel the myths of breast cancer and also encourages early detection and provides resources for screenings and other support for those within the African American community. And it's great to see organizations like this and survivors like Ms. Vina Morris helping to make a difference. So until next time, God bless. You have been listening to Boob Talk with your host, Cynthia Rogers. Follow us on all podcasting platforms and on Facebook at Boob Talk Podcast Group and Instagram at Cynthia L. Rogers Boob Talk Podcast. Remember, never give up hope.